They say that your life flashes before your eyes in a moment of crisis. That's a lie. My life didn't flash. It stopped. It froze on one single, agonizing, slow-motion frame. Me. Standing still, watching the automated gate arm thwack down just as the clock above it ticked over. 5 minutes. That's all the distance between the man I am now and the ghost I almost became. 5 minutes is a bathroom line. It's a traffic light change. It's the time it takes to tie a shoelace that came undone at the worst possible second. It was supposed to be the perfect trip. Flight 1109 to London, a non-stop, red-eye escape. My bags were checked. My ticket was clutched in a sweaty palm. I was running late, not catastrophically, but late enough. The kind of late where every turnstile, every security tray, every slow walker in front of you feels like a personal villain. I saw the gate. Gate A14. I could see the end of the jetway. I could see the light on the plane's wing blinking red, white, red. I sprinted the last 100 yards, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm that wasn't keeping time with my feet anymore. I remember seeing the gate agent's eyes. They weren't angry, they were pitying. That's worse than anger. Her lips formed the words, "Sir, boarding is officially closed." And then, the mechanical, cold finality of the gate arm dropping down. A heavy, hollow sound. I hammered on the counter. I begged. I pointed at the fuselage visible through the window, the beast that was still right there. I told her my reason, my perfect, unmissable reason for needing to be on that flight. She just shook her head, repeating the airline's policy with the hollow tone of a mantra. In that moment, standing there, sweaty, defeated, and utterly alone, it was the worst moment of my life, a complete humiliating failure. I felt the kind of irrational, white-hot fury that makes you want to smash something. I had let down the one person who mattered most, all for the sake of 5 miserable minutes. I walked away from the gate, defeated, dragging my carry-on like a corpse. I found a quiet, half-empty corner and sank into a plastic chair. My phone was dead. I had no choice but to wait for the next flight, to stew in the silence, to replay those 5 minutes until they felt like an eternity. I was already composing the terrible, apologetic text in my head. "I'm sorry, I failed. I'll be there in the morning." I sat there, staring into the middle distance, when the gate agent, the one who'd turned me away, cleared her throat. I looked up, ready for another lecture on policy, but she just pointed. I followed her finger to the nearest departure monitor. My flight, 1109, was already gone, replaced by the word, "departed." I was miserable, I was a failure, but I was still alive, and that was the difference. I was halfway to finding a charging station when the airport changed. Not structurally, but atmospherically. It was subtle at first. A woman gasped into her cell phone. A bartender stopped wiping his counter. The low volume of the televisions above the bar suddenly seemed to have all been synchronized to the same urgent channel. I watched a businessman standing by the wall, the same man who'd been on his phone arguing 10 minutes earlier. He was now motionless, his mouth slightly open, staring at the screen of his own device. Then the collective sound I will never forget. A sudden, horrifying intake of breath. The noise started small, in one corner, a gasping ripple, and then it swept across the terminal like a physical wave. Every screen in the airport, departure boards, gate signs, televisions above the bar, snapped to the same image, the same breaking news banner, tragedy confirmed. I walked slowly towards a larger screen, a 50-inch display above a closed souvenir shop. The headline was a chaotic mix of speculation and raw horror. Initial reports suggest no survivors. But it wasn't the words that got me, it was the picture, a grainy stock photo of the airplane model. And then, in the corner, a small official icon next to the flight information. Flight 1109, the tail number, the destination. London. My mind didn't register it as a tragedy. It registered it as a bureaucratic error, A mistake. My flight can't be gone. It just left. It can't be gone. I looked back at the gate. A 14. It was empty, sterile. Then the feeling hit. Not grief, not sadness. It was a complete physical draining of all warmth and color. My knees locked, my vision tunneled. The floor of the airport suddenly felt incredibly close, and the air smelled metallic. I wasn't happy to be alive. I was sickened to be an outsider. I started shaking, violently. A wave of survivor's guilt washed over me, so strong I felt like I needed to vomit. It wasn't relief, it was a suffocating dread. The people I saw in the security line, the woman who accidentally bumped my elbow, the pilot whose voice I'd heard over the intercom, they were on that plane. I should have been on that plane. The 5 minutes of failure, the moment I hated most in my life, had simply exchanged my destination for a second chance. I sat back down in the deserted corner, staring at the small, cheap vinyl seat next to me, the seat I was occupying. The seat that, according to the laws of time and schedule, should have been empty. The emptiness became a void, a hollow where my life should have ended. For the next hour, I couldn't move. I watched the emergency crews swarm the terminal. The media descended. The airport, usually a place of perpetual movement, became a monument of frozen, silent horror. I was the only one who knew my truth, and the isolation was crushing. I was a ghost in reverse, a man whose name was supposed to be on a list that was now being read out loud on national television. I took out my dead phone and stared at the cracked screen, and that's when the interrogation began. Not from the police, but from myself. Why me? My survival wasn't a choice. It wasn't a heroic action. It was a mathematical equation gone wrong. I had to dissect the 5 minutes. I had to find the error. Minute 1, leaving the house. I had packed my charger separately, and at the last moment, I ran back upstairs to grab it. 45 seconds. Minute 2, the parking garage. I missed the sign for the correct airline entrance. I took the wrong turn and had to snake back through 3 levels. 1 minute, 20 seconds. Pure, idiotic human error. Minute 3, check-in. The automated kiosk flashed an error message after scanning my passport. I had to wait for the attendant to override the system with a key. 2 minutes, 10 seconds. I remembered glaring at the poor woman, resenting the delay. Minute 4, security. This was the biggest one. A man in front of me, tall, wearing a heavy winter coat, fumbled with his belt. It kept setting off the metal detector. The agent made him go through 3 times. I remember thinking, "Move, you fool. I'm going to miss my flight." 3 full minutes lost to a belt buckle. Minute 5, the final sprint. I should have been there 15 minutes before the cutoff. I made it there 4 minutes after. It wasn't a grand life-saving intervention. It was 8 minutes and 15 seconds of mundane, irritating life. A missing charger, a wrong turn, a system glitch, a fumbled belt. These tiny threads of annoyance, the things that made me want to scream with frustration, had woven a lifeboat for me. This wasn't fate pulling me back with a strong hand. This was randomness. This was the terrifying idea that every little irritation, every delay that makes you curse under your breath, might be a secret guardian. And that is what haunts you. That the people on Flight 1109, maybe they were early, maybe they packed their chargers, maybe they didn't get stuck behind a fumbling tourist. They had been efficient, and efficiency cost them everything. I couldn't stay. I charged my phone just long enough to send 1 text. Not to the airline, not to the news, to the person waiting for me in London. My reason for taking that flight, my fiancé. I hadn't been able to talk to her yet. I couldn't bear the thought of hearing the confusion in her voice turn to cold fear when she realized my flight was the one on the news. I walked out of that airport and drove. I drove for an hour, pulled over to the side of a highway, and called her. She answered immediately, her voice shaky. She'd seen the news. She'd been calling my dead phone for an hour, her voice cracking with terror. "I missed the flight," I whispered. It was the only way I could say it. Not "I'm alive," but I missed it. The silence on the other end was the heaviest sound I have ever heard. Then she started to cry. A wrenching, profound relief that wasn't relief at all. It was the sound of a heart being put back together after being shattered into a million pieces. That was the moment I realized the depth of the gift. It wasn't just my life I had saved. It was her life I hadn't destroyed. But the survivor's guilt is a relentless shadow. Every single morning, when the sun comes through the window, I feel it. I look at my hand, and I see the simple fact of my existence. And I think of the empty seats I know should have included mine. How do you live a life that was technically already forfeit? How do you earn a gift you didn't ask for and certainly didn't deserve? You live it openly. You live it fully. You stop rushing. I still travel, but I arrive early, too early, and when I sit at the gate, I don't see an obstacle. I see the people who are on the plane. I look at their faces, and I acknowledge them. I don't know who they are, but I know their fragility, because I share it. The things I used to complain about, the traffic, the rain, the long queue at the grocery store, they are no longer inconveniences. They are the miracles of slowness. They are the signs that I am still walking on this ground, still breathing this air. I missed my flight by 5 minutes. It was the worst moment of my life, until it became the best. I didn't beat death. I was simply forgotten by it. And I will never, for a single second, forget that gift.